Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Section 110.4 of the Kentucky Constitution gives the power to the legislature to redistrict the appellate courts in Kentucky. And I want to be very clear, there is another bill to redistrict some of the trial courts. We're not talking about any of that here. This is the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals. Our Constitution sets up 7 Supreme Court districts, and in those Supreme Court districts is 1 justice and 2 Court of Appeals judges. That's what we're talking about in this bill. Before I explain it, Mr. Speaker, I do have 2 floor amendments that I need to attach, and I'll discuss those individually. So I would, with your permission, Mr. Speaker, request that the clerk report House Floor Amendment 1.
Clerk, please report.
House Floor Amendment 1 to House Bill 179.
Gentleman from Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Floor Amendment 1, I think, is coming before you now. And House Floor Amendment 1, is it up? Okay, so what House Floor Amendment 1 does is it makes a small adjustment to the map that we had in the original bill. And it addresses 3 counties only, and what it does is it puts Ohio County and Hancock County into the 2nd district from the 1st district, and it puts Logan County into the 1st district from the 2nd district. And the reason for that is the original bill only affected 1 Court of Appeals judge in this way. All existing Court of Appeals judges and justices remain in their districts except for Court of Appeals Judge Jeff Taylor. Jeff Taylor lives in Ohio County, and to make sure, he's been on the bench for 19 years. He's a terrific judge. Most lawyers that practice before the Court of Appeals know how incisive his questions are, know how hard he works, and a very good judge, and we want him to be given the opportunity to not have to run against his colleagues in the 1st when the 2nd district has already elected him, and so they can keep him in there if they desire to in the upcoming election and let the people make that decision. So putting the Ohio County and Hancock County in the 2nd and putting Logan County in the 1st doesn't alter, doesn't change the population or anything, just for the particular reason. So I would ask, Mr. Speaker, for the House Floor Amendment 1 to be adopted.
Motion is for the adoption of House Floor Amendment 1. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor signify by voting aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. House Floor Amendment 1 is adopted. Gentleman from Jefferson, 33.
Mr. Speaker, I would ask the clerk to report House Floor Amendment 2.
Clerk, please report.
House Floor Amendment 2 to House Bill 179.
Gentleman from Jefferson.
Wait for that I think it's getting in front of you. Okay, so House Floor Amendment 2, what it does is it extends the filing deadline for Court of Appeals and Supreme Court justices in the similar way that we did yesterday in the omnibus bill, and that is also in the House bill that we will address later today, and in the other bills that the Senate, I think, is considering today. So that's all it does. It mirrors the language in those bills and says that if you're running for Court of Appeals or Supreme Court this year, then your filing deadline is January the 25th rather than tomorrow, just like the other bills. So with that, if there's no questions, Mr. Speaker, I would ask for adoption of House Floor Amendment 2.
Motion is for the adoption of House Floor Amendment 2. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor signify by voting aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. House Floor Amendment 2 is adopted.
Thank you, Mr.
Gentleman
Speaker.
from Jefferson.
I'll be brief about the underlying bill. That's House Bill 179, obviously as amended by Floor Amendments 1 and 2. The appellate court districts have not been redistricted for decades. The Supreme Court submitted a map to the legislature in 2012, which was adopted with the legislative maps. But when the Supreme Court invalidated the legislative maps in 2012, and this General Assembly came back in 2013 and adopted legislative maps, it did not also adopt the court maps for whatever reason, I don't know. And so the court map that was submitted in 2012 actually never became law. What this map does is it takes what they've done in 2012 and made further population shifts because of growth in certain areas, and it brings these districts into compliance. Just so everyone knows, the Kentucky Constitution says that you can't split any county and that you have to be close in population. That's the one-man, one-vote principle. And while these are judges and not legislators, so the one-man, one-vote principles don't apply as tightly as ours do because we represent individuals. They do not. For example, the justice from the mountains isn't supposed to make a decision that's best for the mountains. justice from Louisville is not supposed to make a decision that's best for Louisville. They're supposed to make a decision that follows the law. Whereas we represent our districts in a different way. So while the one-man, one-vote principles do apply, they don't apply as tightly. With that said, I wanted to say where the populations of the current districts are, which will lead, I think, to the realization of how important it is that we get this accomplished. Right now, the first district has 525,000 people in it, and I'm going to round, 525,000 people. The second district, which is Bowling Green, Davis County, Hardin County, Bullitt County, has 677,000 people in it. Obviously, the first is west of that. The third district, which is Rockcastle, Pulaski, Lincoln, Laurel, that's the hub of that district, also has Nelson, has 582,000 people in it. The fourth district, which is Louisville, has 783,000. The fifth district has 740,000. That's the Northern Kentucky district. The sixth district, that's the Lexington district. The Northern Kentucky district has 723,000. And then the seventh district, which is the East Mountain district, has 476,000. So you can see the populations are out of whack. This brings them all tightly together with one exception, and that's Louisville. As much as I would like to split Louisville, giving the people I represent more power because they would have one full justice and then they'd have effectively a fourth of another one, the Constitution doesn't allow us to do that. When I asked Chief Justice Minton, how do you think we should draw the maps in a Judiciary Committee meeting, maybe it was an Appropriation and Revenue Committee meeting, since I think this is unfair to Jefferson County, how do you think we should draw the maps? And he said, you may not split a county. So we've done that. That's why Jefferson County sets aside. They have 783,000 people. The rest of them have approximately 620,000, give or take a few thousand, to bring the population into compliance. I think that's the explanation. And if there are no, I would also say this, because I've heard some discussion about this through the community. The fifth district is the Lexington district. It has to restrict quite a bit, and so does the sixth district, which is Northern Kentucky. We've taken the eastern Kentucky, the counties that are more in the eastern part of the Northern Kentucky district away, and the reason for that is, one, that was what the Supreme Court requested in 2012, but two, there's no way to draw the map in a reasonable way without doing it that way, because somebody has to take Oldham County and Shelby County. It can't go to Louisville, obviously. It can't go to Lexington because it has to reduce population. So it has to stay in Northern Kentucky. And unfortunately, that means counties like Mason County and Fleming County and Bath County and some others were taken away from the Northern Kentucky Supreme Court district. Davis County, the other big change is Davis County goes to the first Supreme Court district to make that population where it comes up in the line where it needs to be. So if there are no further questions, Mr. Speaker, I would move that House Bill 179, as amended by House Floor Amendment 1 and House Floor Amendment 2, pass.